So hello, I've got Stephen O'Sullivan here with me today. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That's okay. We're doing a talk because Stephen's doing some research on chemsex, and we thought it'd be a good idea to sort of give people an idea of what that means and what the questions are like and why he's doing it, and some reassuring things. So, Stephen, tell us about it to begin with.
Yeah, great, and yeah, thanks for having me here. So I'm doing some research to try and understand and explore the lived experience of men who sleep with men and have engaged in chemsex to a level that's kind of been problematic or harmful. So really kind of trying to hope to get that lived experience and give voice to men who have sort of like noticed that their involvement has maybe been problematic or it's had some kind of harmful effect on their life. So that's what I'm hoping to uncover.
Okay. I just changed the screen a little bit. It's kind of really important. I know there's loads of gay men that really like to give back and they really like to volunteer, but people think of volunteering mostly as like volunteering in a service and doing face-to-face or making cups of tea or learning a skill, but contributing to research is really, really important. And it is a great way to volunteer your own lived experience. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's a way that we can often sort of like get some really sort of like deep and rich information to really understand the individual experience, which I think sometimes can be lost in sort of like other ways of sort of like collecting like information and data and things. And I think like in terms of what we can learn from it and hopefully what we can get from it will be sort of like really, really helpful. And I guess it's something that it can sort of seem a bit intimidating and a bit sort of like daunting to take part in. But just to sort of say that it's a process that is really helpful, and it's really sort of like simple to, it's just a conversation really, and it's just sort of like really trying to give voice to individual experience.
And just to sort of prove that you're not a dirty old man that's interested in hearing other people tell their filthy chemsex stories, you are affiliated with a college or a university?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm studying. I'm training to be a counselling psychologist. So I'm training at City University in London, and my research has been given like ethical approval. So just to sort of like give that reassurance, it's part of my training is to do a thesis and have like a topic of research, and this is what I'm choosing to do. So I hope that gives some level of reassurance.
I think it does. And ethics kind of means that a bunch of people have looked at the questions to make sure they're not too intrusive, to make sure that there are backup plans in case it triggers some behavior or something.
Correct. Yeah. So everything from sort of like the procedure and everything from sort of like the flyer to the questions to I guess sort of like how data is stored and things like that. It all goes through like an ethics panel, and they sort of like assess like all of it and think about the risk and things like that, and it was given ethical approval to go ahead. So yeah.
It is important because there are some researchers out there, but also some questionnaires and surveys which can be a bit biased. You know, some people have attitudes about addiction or drug use that might be that vary, that might even be a bit stigmatizing, and some people have opinions about certain sexual activities or behavior, or not understand the complex dynamics of drug use and why we make certain choices and our own abilities to weigh risk and stuff. The fact that you're involved in an ethics committee, that you're training to be a psychologist, which is based in human behavior, these are all good things, important things, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think sort of like definitely keeping that that ethics in mind, but also not coming at the research and sort of like thinking from a particular biased angle. And I think by keeping the ethics and having that view in mind, that it's really sort of like open to have that individual experience and hear that voice and hear what kind of went on without sort of having some like preempted idea of what might be going on or some kind of stigma, and that's definitely not the case. It's incredibly like non-judgmental and just wanting to try and understand what's been going on for some people.
And also within a community too. So is there a thing that you're a finding that you're hoping to explore, or something you are hoping to find as you go through all of these interviews?
Well, I think that the main thing that I sort of like to take away from it is is to understand what that lived experience looks like, and then from that, are there things that could be learned to inform things like, for example, like my own practice as a psychologist, and what can I sort of like take away from that? But then also, what can we learn that we could use to sort of inform like other services, whether it's other like mental health services or sexual health services or substance use services? Are there things that we could learn about maybe that journey from when things have been like when chemsex has been quite fun or felt manageable and sort of like a level that's sort of felt a bit controlled, to then a point where things have become a bit more harmful and problematic? Are there things we can learn about that process? And what can we sort of like, I guess, sort of like include in service development and understanding among professionals as a whole, really, and to best support gay men who want to sort of seek support from chemsex that has been sort of problematic.
So yeah, that's great. So that if a GP service, or if your NHS service, or even a private therapist are trying to help their new staff or their psychologists or therapists get skilled up and understand the cultural dynamics and complexities of chemsex, to make sure that they're not sending someone off to somebody who's going to be ignorant or naive, or make someone give up drugs, or use the wrong terminology, or misunderstand what addiction means. This is research is designed specifically so that they have something they can look at to understand it all better and learn how to ask questions and behave within that relationship better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's exactly it. And I think often in services, I mean, a dual diagnosis has become more of a thing, but often you've got to go like here for substance use, and then here for mental health, or here for physical health, and I guess sort of like being able to know how services as a whole can best support gay men who are involved in chemsex, and looking for that support, just how they can be more accessible and more welcoming, and how they can understand what are the unique and individual things that might be going on, without sort of feeling that you have to sort of like get signposted that service and that service and go around the houses, and also using that sort of like, I guess, sort of like using language that would be stigmatizing and inappropriate to use. So there's that potential to kind of really inform, not only just sort of like the therapeutic angle and like the psychology side, but also the wider services that exist as well that men access.
Good. And as someone that has been campaigning and an activist in regard to chemsex for well over a decade, this research really, really does help. You know, the more research there is about this that sort of explores the cultural competency and the cultural aspects of chemsex, it really does help. So volunteering and doing this research is a really good way to help your community at large as well. What sort of questions might they be asked if people are going to speak with you? And first of all, is this online questions that they answer, or are they having face-to-face Zoom discussions with you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's on Zoom, or sort of like other platforms, whatever sort of people feel comfortable with and happy to use. It's usually something that will last about an hour, and the process of it is what's called like a semi-structured interview. So I've got some questions that I'll ask to everybody, and then based on responses, there might be things that might explore in a bit more detail, or sort of like prompt on certain things. And it's trying to understand, so the questions are sort of based to understand the journey from first being involved in chemsex to sort of like noticing when things have become a bit more harmful and problematic, and what was that process like? How did you notice it? And then the process of being able to sort of like address that and to try and access support as well. So, and the questions are really trying to sort of like, I guess, sort of like span that journey in a sense, and to try and pull out information at those different time points where we can try and sort of think about what we can learn and what are the things that could be helpful or unhelpful, and what we can take away from that, sort of like moving forward.
You would describe it more as a conversation than a question answer sort of thing.
Definitely, it feels like it's more of a conversation as opposed to sort of like back and forth. So I kind of see those questions that I've got as there to kind of guide, but then once we've kind of like asked that question and we're exploring it, it's definitely more of a conversation as opposed to sort of like a rigid back and forth thing. So it's just there to try and guide, but then also to to allow for someone to share their individual lived experience as well.
I know too that within your the ethics committee and the other organisers of the research, you had lots of conversations about what happens if someone feels triggered to use during that conversation, or if it's triggering other kinds of mental health or emotional stuff. There is a pathway. Tell me about that.
There is, yes. So, so like you said, it was part of the ethics process, and I wouldn't have given ethical approval if I didn't have like an escalation process in mind. So, there are certain sort of points at different points of the research. So, for example, in order to sort of like take part, I'm asking that people aren't currently using and haven't been for at least 6 months. And that people aren't for at least 6 months as well under the care of a mental health professional. And again, that was something from the ethics committee to just, again, to try and safeguard and minimize that risk. And then for those who do want to take part in terms of the data that is taken as well, because things are obviously all online at the minute, and it will be sort of like on Zoom or something like that, I need to have a way of being able to contact somebody if it gets to sort of like a crisis point. But those contact details, so it could be like a phone number and address, will only be stored for the duration of the interview and then destroyed. But again, that was something that the ethics committee have said that I need, because like you said, if a conversation does trigger something, and someone could get into a state of distress and a point of crisis, that I need to be able to have a way of, if needed, to directing services towards them, and that's just for those details are just stored for the duration. And I do ask as well that people share their GP details, so we can have a conversation around signposting to a GP if that's also needed. But I really foresee that kind of escalation is there sort of like there just in case, and that it's not going to be the case that the questions are going to be triggering, and that's going to happen a lot. So it's there just to kind of safeguard and to know that that's the process should something happen.
Good. And there's a whole lot of confidentiality stuff that keeps this information private and safe from other people finding it out as well.
Of course, yeah, it's all secured and encrypted, and so the audio, it's just an audio recording that's taken of the interview, so not the video is not recorded, just the audio, and that's stored securely, and the only other data that is stored after the interview is just things like demographic details, so it could be somebody's age or their sexual identity, and that's just for the write-up, and just so I know who's been involved, but it's not the personal details. They're not stored. That they're all destroyed as soon as the interview is finished.
Great. So with all those backup measures and the security things in place, it really just comes down to a really nice conversation between you and somebody who hasn't used drugs in the last 6 months, but has some experience of chemsex that really wants to give back to their community and help other psychologists and health professionals do their work better.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And just to say as well, like I mean, I've got a flyer that there's a statement that kind of someone has to kind of agree with, to sort of say that they've sort of seen their experience as being like harmful or problematic, but I guess that's quite self-explanatory, because I guess seeing something as a problem is very subjective, and it's not for me to decide. It's up to somebody else to decide if their chemsex has had like a negative impact on their life. So if that's the case, that someone kind of identifies with that and they want to share their story and partake in this research, I'd be really thankful for that as well. And to say that the age range that I'm recruiting between is 25 to 50 as well. So so that's sort of like one of the other requirements as well.
Okay. And where can they live? Anywhere?
Yeah, so within the UK, yes.
Okay.
So I've only got ethical approval to recruit from the UK. So anywhere in the UK would be great. And yeah, there's no restriction on that.
Okay. How do people contact you?
So I think the best way is to contact me on my email address, which is stephen.osullivan@city.ac.uk. And that's Stephen with a PH, and there's no apostrophe in my surname. So yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. And I can share my email with you as well.
Okay, we'll put that at the bottom of it wherever we share this too.
Right, yeah, that'd be really, really helpful.
All right. I would be quite comfortable telling you my history. I think you're a kind guy. I know you care about your community, you care about healthcare and people having better lives and better sex lives.
Mm.
And I know they'll be safe chatting with you.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for talking to me today. Then we'll share this information about how to contact you wherever this is, and anyone that does want to talk in other way or get some help or access therapy, based on what they've had with you, they can also contact me as well. I'm happy to point people in the right direction as well.
That's great.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks for having me. Thanks very much.